Hello and welcome to another Thoughts per episode. This time we're doing, you guessed it, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. At the time of recording, I have not seen a single episode. It's the 19th of March, so the first episode has just come out, but I figure I should probably talk about what my expectations for this series are going to be. I'm not going to beat around the bush, I'm just going to say it. This is probably the series I'm least interested or least excited to have coming out of the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe doing Disney Plus original shows thing. It's just, I don't foresee it being anything more than buddy cop action. Obviously not cops, but you know what I mean, like that buddy cop kind of a dynamic, and it's going to be like an action thing, and they're going to explore some of the more Captain America villains, and I don't see it going anywhere unexpected or doing anything super original or interesting. Much like the Captain America films themselves, I think it's just going to be decent telly. So I guess let's get on with it. Episode 1, New World Order. Sam Wilson, aka Falcon, learns of a rising threat while juggling challenges at home in Louisiana. Bucky Barnes desperately tries to reintegrate into society, but struggles with nightmares revealing terrifying actions as Winter Soldier that may not be nightmares at all. So the show opens in a similar way to most modern action movies, in that we are given a very, very loose plot to kind of justify a action sequence, which is good, it's decent. It's not my personal cup of tea when it comes to action sequences. I don't love bullets flying and having to dodge bullets and, you know, helicopters and parachutes and all that. I mean, this is probably why I'm not a huge lover of modern day action movies, but all the same, I think it was good for the fact that it wasn't a movie. There were certain points where it's like, you know, the aircraft didn't depressurize, like the cabin in it didn't depressurize when Sam blew the door open, and I kind of noticed that. And I'm not saying everything has to be ultra realistic all the time, but it's kind of like that level of action movie where it's like, does it make sense? It doesn't matter, it's just gotta be cool. And seeing as it didn't personally resonate with me on the cool factor, I was just kind of sat there going, okay, sure, this is a thing that's happening. That being said, the episode only got better from there. I really enjoyed learning more about Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes, where they are in their lives, what society is like after the blip, how it's affecting all of these different people, and how they're readjusting to normal life after Endgame. I think that's the stuff I like the most out of all this, because I like the characters, I just don't necessarily like the genre that they embody. On Falcon's side, I really like that we learn more about Sam Wilson's family and their monetary problems, and it kind of tears the veil back a little bit and says, hey, look, you just kind of expect the Avengers, like these world-renowned heroes, to be loaded with money and all of this, but not all of them are. And here we have Sam Wilson having money troubles, and that's going to be a part of his character arc moving forwards, I would assume. Meanwhile, Bucky Barnes is leveling with some top-tier PTSD from being Winter Soldier from, Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Anyone who hasn't watched that movie, I'm looking at you, Reese, you should probably go and watch that movie before you continue watching the series, or you're not going to get a lot of the character arc that he's going through. I like that they both had twists at the end. For instance, Bucky Barnes. Okay, so actually I have a question about that. I don't know if the reason he was hanging out with his older guy was because he already knew that his son was the one that he killed, or if he just learned that after the fact, and if so, is that a huge coincidence? Or is it more of a case of the nightmares of what he did are returning because he found that out, or like he was learning it on some subconscious level, like the name was familiar to him and it was tickling a memory back there or something? I don't know, but it's cool as a character thing to learn that it's not just oh, and he's a good guy now, so don't worry about what he did before. It's like, no, he's obviously going to have trouble reconciling his past with what he's doing now, and to learn that at the end of the episode that the old man that he was hanging out with was the father of the guy that he killed back in 1930 whatever. That was pretty damn cool. I enjoyed that a lot. Although, wouldn't he be super old now, thinking about it? I forget. You know what? I might need to go back and watch Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Did they D4 him at random times over the next 100 years? I think they might have done. Fuck, I don't remember. Anyway, and Sam Wilson's thing at the end where he's talking about how he's not going to do what Steve Rogers wants and carry on the Captain America legacy, and then that comes back and bites him in the ass when the American government very predictably goes, but we need our patriotism and we need a new American hero, and in a kind of a completely opposite thing to what Sam Wilson was saying with his speech. Was just like, yeah, we got our new Captain America, don't worry everyone, we've got Captain America back, and I'm sure we're going to see that play out as the series goes on. He's going to be a sleeper Hydra agent, probably, right? That's probably what's going to happen here. I've got to say, compared to WandaVision, I'm glad they led with WandaVision, because this so far is way more standard, way more what you would expect out of a Marvel MCU TV series, and it feels a lot more in the vein of Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. than it does WandaVision. So I'm hoping we get more WandaVision level stuff, and there's certainly potential for this to evolve into that. Maybe, I don't know, but so far I'm enjoying it for what it is, which is, you know, not too complicated, and it's helping us to explore the post-blip world, which, if you haven't already been able to guess, is what fascinates me the most about a post-Endgame MCU. I still wish they'd fucking renew the Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage's of the world. I remembered all four. And Punisher, I guess. Do we need Punisher? I don't know. I liked Punisher at the time, but I see a lot of white supremacists using him as a symbol, even though that's not the intention, if it's empowering them. Oh, that's a whole different conversation. Does bother me, though. Episode 2, The Star-Spangled Man. John Walker assumes his new role as Captain America, news that's not well received by Sam Wilson or Bucky Barnes. They, meanwhile, decide to team up against a rebel group headed by Carly Morgenthau. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher that name. So yeah, they began this episode by fleshing out the guy who is going to be the new Captain America, and as I hoped, he is someone who, on paper, is a good man, but in person is obviously very flawed, and yeah. I think the best way of summing up the issue with him is in the episode when Sam and Bucky meet him, and I forget who it is. I think Sam says, how many live grenades have you jumped on, as kind of like a prove your heroism kind of a thing, but also in kind of a snide way, like obviously if you jumped on a live grenade you're not going to be alive to talk about it, right? And he's like, oh, 4 actually, I do this thing with my helmet, and it's like the perfect thing where it's like, oh, I've jumped on 4 live grenades. It's like a currency to him, like a heroism currency, but that's not the point. Like, obviously it is heroic because, you know, you're saving lives, but at the same time it's not what the symbolic jumping on a live grenade thing that Sam was talking about is really all about, because he's not actually putting his life on the line, he's not actually sacrificing himself for anyone, and that's, like, I think the perfect description of him as a character, and the problem with him as Captain America. It's not genuine, it's like, oh, this guy fits the bill. Also, the whole blonde hair and blue eyes thing, it's a bit on the nose, but I can totally see America doing that. I also really like that we're exploring more of Bucky's past, the darker side of it, like how people are going to react to him, how they're not just going to be like, oh yeah, we fought like 50 years ago, but you're a good guy now. They're not going to be like that. They're going to be like, get the fuck out of my house, and that's very rightly what this guy was like. Obviously, Civil War was kicked off by the entire thing of the American government wanting to hunt down Bucky Barnes because of what he did, and Captain America or Steve Rogers being like, no, that's not what he's like, that's not what he's about. He was obviously brainwashed and all this kind of stuff, and he's atoning for what he did, so that's part of it. And it's really cool that it's being further explored here in more of a kind of day-to-day way of like, oh yeah, this guy hates my guts, and I cannot blame him. My biggest issue with this episode is that we saw two preview scenes for this show, and they were both from this episode. It was Sam and Bucky in the hangar, and then Sam and Bucky in therapy. That was like a large part of one of the trailers, and I kind of think the trailers and the previews gave away too much, at least at where we are now, because this is a 6-episode series and we are on episode 2, and I felt like I'd seen half of this episode before, and I know they're going to steal the shield as well, because that's also been shown prominently in trailers, so that's great, isn't it? And luckily I forgot it apparently, but also the new Captain America had also been shown in these trailers, so again, just maybe I think the thing that was so great about WandaVision was that what the series even was such a mystery that the trailers didn't give too much away. They just built into the mystery. But I guess coming off of that, it's kind of easy to forget that most trailers for things kind of spoil like half the show, so that's kind of unfortunate. I thought it was super interesting that Bucky referenced his other alias as the White Wolf in regards to him staying in Wakanda, because obviously that's a thing in the comics, and I thought it was played very well with Sam Wilson for laughs kind of thing, but also like oh shit, wait, did we miss something, or did I forget something? Maybe I forgot something. But apparently that's kind of a big deal to like who he is as a person, like his personality, so I mean, that's cool. I still don't think the enemy group of super soldiers who want the world to go back to the way it was during the blip are a particularly enthralling group of villains to be interested in. I think it's more interesting to see the new Captain America as a pseudo-villain, and watching him descend into more direct villainy as the show goes on is what I think is going to happen, and what I hope is going to happen too. Whether it's due to his own flaws or because of like a combination of that and the way people perceive him kind of egging him on to be worse, and then yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But as for the super terrorist dudes, that's just straight up action movie boring. Like, yeah. And we're gonna see Zemo next episode. Wow, that would have been more of a bombshell if they hadn't released one of those Marvel Legacy things that recapped us on Zemo, because if we're gonna go ahead and see Zemo, we need a recap on him. But if they're gonna show us a recap of him, then it kind of shows us that we're gonna see Zemo. They've also done one for Sharon, so I assume we're going to see Sharon too, and that might be the next big whoa cliffhanger. Episode 3, Power Broker. Sam, Bucky, and an unlikely ally venture to a criminal safe haven in the Indonesian archipelago in search of information about the super soldier serum. I've gotta be honest, I'm bored, guys. I'm so bored. I don't care about super soldiers that much. There's far more exciting things in the Marvel universe to be focusing on. I don't care about how many different countries they can show off in this one show. Like, oh, they're over here and then they're over here, which is a very action movie kind of thing to do. Like, oh, we're in this country, that never gets much of a spotlight, which is fine. But yeah, and then like Zemo isn't. He's just kind of wooden. He's just kind of like, yeah, I'm the bad guy. And they break him out, and it's like, whoa, what a controversial thing we're doing, and then they're working with him, and then he does a really bad thing and kills someone, and they're like, whoa, that's not cool, and then he shows up, and they're like, okay, don't do that again, slap on the wrist, and he's like, I won't do that again, and then they keep working with him. There's absolutely no weight attributed to it, and Sharon Carter's fine, I guess, but again, she's just kind of like, I've just been chilling here, and I've got some mysterious stuff going on, but ooh, you'll have to wait to find out about that. And then, I don't know, man, it's just, hopefully it's more interesting next week, but maybe it's just not my kind of a thing. I apologise if I'm not giving this episode much of a thorough go-over in terms of talking about it, but it would just be more of what you've just heard, and if I'm perfectly honest, I want to go play some Outriders on my Xbox tonight, before I have to go to bed, you know, like, before I have to go to bed, before it gets late. Yeah, I just not really feeling it, so maybe it'll perk up in the next few episodes. But I liked the buddy cop thing that Sam and Bucky had going on, and these extra characters they're throwing into the mix just kind of detract from it. There's just less opportunities for it to occur, and I don't like the dynamic that's added to the group when more of them kind of show up. So yeah, I don't know, maybe it gets more interesting. And the Flag Smashers, oh, they just continue to be that name where they joke about it in the first episode of, oh, that's a really shit name. It doesn't really resonate. That's just them as a villain group. Like, I think they're trying to do a take on them where it's like the dangers of extremism, and they're trying to make them look nuanced because, oh look, they're talking about what they would like to do if they weren't doing this, and they might be decent people after all, but except they just blew up a bunch of people to send a message, which isn't a very cool thing to do. But like, man, it's none of this is landing with me, to be honest. Bring on Loki. Episode 4, The Whole World is Watching. John Walker loses patience with Sam and Bucky as they learn more about Karli Morgenthau. This was, at the very least, a way more interesting episode than last week. We got the Wakandans out for blood because obviously Bucky's using Zemo to try and help do something, and they're like, hey, that bastard killed our king, what the hell are you doing? We've got the villains in the Flag Smashers becoming almost interesting in how they're trying to recruit Sam, and Sam's kind of like, I agree with your fight, just not your methods. And then best of all, we've got Captain America as John Walker going down a path of no return, as we all knew that he was going to. In kind of a curious way, I've got to say, I think this episode hits better because The Boys is a show that I've seen, and that is a show that very much focuses on the aspects of the terrifying nature of superhumans and what they would be like if they were awful. And this entire show, John Walker's been giving me very Homelander vibes. Like, Homelander is pretty much a spoof of Captain America, and John Walker being the Captain America but not quite as morally good, definitely kind of points that same direction. Obviously, The Boys goes way harder on that theme and isn't quite as nuanced in its storytelling, but you know what I mean. The show is having a lot of fun with the idea that Zemo has a point in that you can't just have a bunch of superpowered people running around because you got lucky with Captain America. Not all of them are going to have that kind of moral compass, and it's a prevailing theme with Bucky as well, of like, what if he turns Winter Soldier again and turns evil, and he was the original, rogue super soldier that was doing evil shit. So I think it's cool. That being said, as kind of a meta-narrative, I think it's kind of weird that they've gone with a globalization philosophy that this terrorist group kind of adheres to. Obviously, the Marvel Cinematic Universe's version of Earth is in a very different state to real Earth, so it's not quite as cut and dry as that, but the fact that these are terrorists who are trying to make a world without borders, and like all of these things which are normally a positive thing, and they're being represented as this terrorist group who are having issues with extremism and going too far and killing people and all of this kind of a thing. It's like, what purpose is this I don't know, like, what purpose is the storytelling? It seems like it's trying to be a warning against extremism, but it's not told in as good of a way as I think they want it to, and sometimes it comes across more as like, globalism is bad, like, I know that's not what they're trying to say, but sometimes that's how it feels. Although I guess that's where Sam comes in with the whole, I agree with your fight but not with your method. I think when all is said and done, this show is going to be picked over by critics for just the many things that it tried to do and didn't quite achieve. It's definitely not up there with WandaVision. But in brighter news, the trailer for the new trailer that just came out for Loki looks very fun. I will say that the character of John Walker is kind of a delight to watch. I don't know how other people feel about him, but at this point in the series, I really am enjoying him. Just like as this kind of villain, like how he was this good man, but like the expectation put upon him and the kind of like the darker aspects of himself that people kind of waved away, they didn't realize they were actively encouraging those parts of him as well by just constantly telling him how good he was, and like his descent into where we get to at the end of this episode with him literally killing someone with the Captain America shield, literally smacking it down and down and down on a guy until he's fucking bleeding and dying, in a very similar way to how Civil War almost ended, interestingly, although I don't think that's maybe a parallel that they're trying to evoke. But the shot of him at the end where everyone's filming him and he's got blood on the bottom of his shield and he's kind of like looking around, like clearly not in his right mind, that's a really good shot. I think this is probably the best thing to come out of this show so far. Episode 5, Truth. John Walker faces consequences for his actions, and Sam and Bucky return to the US. First impressions, I thought this episode was really good but bizarrely paced. First of all, you've got them dealing with the fallout of John Walker murdering that person and him no longer being Captain America and what that means for everyone going forwards, and obviously they're going to address that because it was what happened at the end of the last episode, but it just kind of felt out of place with the rest of the episode. In fact, we kept cutting between characters in a way that felt almost like a non sequitur. I don't know if anyone else felt that way, but I thought it was kind of strange. That being said, I think it's also worth noting that this episode is about 10 minutes longer than most of the episodes, and I think that's for a reason. I think it's because it tackles some important topics and they didn't feel like they could cut any particular portion of it out. Although, to be fair, that's entirely speculation, and perhaps they could have cut some of the scenes out where they're just fixing up the boat, but I wouldn't want any of those scenes cut, because honestly I kind of lived for those scenes. That was lovely. That was like a nice break from everything that was happening, despite the fact that it contributed to the bizarre pacing. They spent a large part of this episode addressing the fact that Falcon was going to become the new Captain America, and as a black man that would be a interesting thing, considering the history of Captain America and his nationalist origins and racism in America and all that kind of a thing. And I'm a white guy, and I'm not necessarily the right voice to talk about this, but from my base kind of interpretations of what I saw, I think it was handled quite well. But again, given that I'm a white man and I've never been on a receiving end of racism, I'm probably just going to take cue from important black voices online on this one. But either way, I'm glad that they're establishing a black man as Captain America, and I'm glad that they seem to be at least attempting to take some time to talk about the fact that that's what's going to happen, and that it's a big deal, not just for in the universe, but for what it means in real life as well, and how certain groups of people are going to react to it. I didn't even consider the fact that at the end of Endgame, the way that the mantle of Captain America was bestowed upon Sam Wilson was kind of done in a way that didn't even consider all of that. And I was kind of with Bucky when he was saying about, hey, we should have considered this and what that meant to you, and we're sorry that we didn't. That almost feels like Marvel in a way, saying like, yeah, we should have been a little bit more, I guess, respectful of the decision we were making, outside of it just being a throwaway line at the end of a movie to set something else up. So I feel like this series Impartial is a response to that. I think Sam Wilson is the perfect character to take up the mantle of Captain America, though, because really when you look at what made Captain America so great, it was Steve Rogers' innate heroism and sense of justice and doing what's right, to the point where when his country started being not great, he just kind of went rogue and carried on doing his thing anyway. And I think Sam Wilson kind of embodies the same kind of an attitude, whereas John Walker was very much a thought experiment in what would happen if you went for the kind of person that looks like they might be a good Captain America, where they've got a good military service record, and let's be honest, they looked similar to him too, and that's not what it's about. Update on my opinion of the Flag Smashers: still not a huge fan, still not endeared to their cause, still not fully behind why globalism is what they went with as the negative aspect. I think it's just for them to be kind of like, you understand where they're coming from, but like the lengths that they're going to, get where they want to be is the message of the whole idea. But no, you don't want to go that far for any reason. It seems like some of her fellow Flag Smashers are having doubts, whereas Carly Morgenthau is becoming more and more radicalized, and I assume that's going to come to a head next episode too, but not in a way that I think is going to be particularly interesting. I think they're going to fall by the wayside as yet another forgettable Marvel villain. Sorry. I think the acting's fine, Marvel villains, they're just not, there's something about them. Some of them are really good, some of the more modern ones have been really good, but just throughout history. I like that we haven't seen the last of John Walker, which was confirmed when we saw the scene that showed John Walker getting more negative affirmation, if that's the right way of saying that, where he's visiting the grieving family of, oh my god, I forget the guy's name, but his hero name was Battlestar, and he lies to them. And he says, yeah, I killed the guy who killed your son. And he's still lying to himself about that too, as we saw from the beginning of the episode, to try and justify what he did. But I think it's interesting that his family are like, you did the right thing. And I'm sure he rests easier knowing that the person who killed him has found justice. And of course, John Walker knows that the person who killed him has not found justice. And what they've just done is, once again, as we've seen throughout this entire series, spur him on to do bad shit, because now he's going to go back and try and take down Carly Morgenthau, and not in a way that's going to have him stopping to try and understand her plight or see where she's coming from and try and help, her get what she needs, get what loads of people need in a non-radicalized kind of a way, in a constructive kind of a way. No, he just wants to kill her for revenge, which is not constructive in any way, which is another one of the main themes of this series. Episode 6. One world. One people. As the Flag Smashers escalate their efforts, Sam and Bucky take action. So it was a bit of a mess. I think this episode really showcased just how much of an identity crisis this show kind of has. It wants to warn us about the dangers of radicalization, but it also keeps wanting to press on us the justifiability of Carly Morgenthau's views. It wants to discuss the paradoxical nature of a black Captain America, given the Flag's past, but it kind of just sweeps it under the rug a little bit to try and get to the end point where we have Black Captain America. Plus there were lots of just little holes, like for instance the entire scene with Sam, Sharon and Carly Morgenthau, which ends up with a dead Carly Morgenthau. When Sam enters the room and he finds that Sharon has been shot, he doesn't display any alarm or concern for his friend, and then when Sharon shoots Carly Morgenthau and kills her, I'm sorry, I really don't know how to say her last name, can you tell? When she kills Carly, Sam doesn't display any anger towards her, so I guess he's just chill with both of them, which doesn't necessarily feel like a real reaction in that situation. We have a legitimately interesting moment when John Walker has to choose between getting his revenge on Carly Morgenthau or saving a bus full of people, and eventually his good-natured side wins out. But then the show takes that as a pardon for everything he's done, just to try and rush the introduction of what's his name? US battle agent or something? US agent. I threw the battle in there for fun. And Madame Hydra, she's just kind of there twirling her mustache. She doesn't really have a proper introduction. We don't really know who she is, and she doesn't really feel like she's got a place in the show, or as to like why John Walker would even listen to her. Sharon Carter's transformation into the power broker and that kind of a character doesn't feel earned either throughout the course of the series, and only feels I don't know. Basically what I'm saying is it's full of holes and not half as clever as it thinks it is, but it was an enjoyable finale all the same, and I enjoyed spending time with the characters on screen. I think it did do a really good job of establishing the camaraderie between Sam and Bucky, and I think it did a really good job of exploring Bucky's trauma and the fact that him atoning for his actions as a Winter Soldier isn't always going to be easy or pleasant. And yeah, it did have some good action scenes. The dialogue in the action scenes was a bit cheesy, like when Sam decides to leave the building instead of continue fighting with this guy, and he chucks his shield out the window and says au revoir and then jumps out after it. That's you could have said any number of things and you went with au revoir, but the action scenes were more than just fly around and punch. Like there was some actual substance to them. Like you had they were showing off his abilities with like Red Wing and being able to scan and see what people's kind of paths are, so that he was able to call a person who was able to control a helicopter and have her take control of a helicopter instead of it crashing and killing everyone. That was really cool, and they made great pains to show that like the heroic actions of Sam and Bucky was to minimize collateral damage no matter what. Not even minimize collateral damage, but like save people, like not even cause collateral damage, which, having just come off the back of rewatching Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, is something that I very much appreciate. But yeah, I guess that's that. I guess that's the show. It had in summary, I guess it had a very boring third episode, but it had some fun moments with some characters that I inherently like, had a bit of an identity crisis in the message it was trying to tell versus the kind of show that it is. And yeah, but at the end of the day, that was it. That was the show, which got revealed to actually be called Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Who could have seen that coming? To be fair, I thought it was going to be Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And you know what? It seems like they were teasing a season 2. If they do a season 2, I'll watch it. It's on Disney+. Can't see myself, like, going out and buying a box set of this, if we're going back to the 2000s, I guess. But, you know, if it's there, then sure, it's enjoyable. And, yeah. As all of the most interesting YouTubers / podcasters say, I have no strong feelings one way or the other. Thank you for listening. Please let me know what you thought, and I'll see you for thoughts on Loki. Now that's going to be an interesting one.